Hi everyone, my name is Amber.
I'm Jasma, and welcome back to another episode of the Off the Charts podcast. This is the podcast where we speak with experienced artists and hear more about their journeys to getting to where they are today.
We are beyond honored and thrilled to be welcoming our next three guests who have been breaking barriers in the entertainment industry this past year. Please help me welcome, all the way from South Africa, the cast and crew of the highly acclaimed film Umama, Talia, Sabelo, and Malibongwe. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
How's it going? How's the day been?
Only good things today.
Good.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
That's the spirit. Well, we're very excited to have you guys here. You guys are actually the first time we've had more than one guest on the podcast, and
Yes.
the first time we're having a guest from a completely different continent. So this is very exciting for all of us.
And it's a new party.
We're already up in here.
Exactly. Thank you for coming on and being so willing to share your stories to youth and people who want to learn from your work and, maybe even be where you guys are today. So we're going to start off, of course, with the film and talking a little bit about that. So Talia, you are the genius, the writer, the director. This is kind of your baby. We know that the story it's absolutely beautiful and it's inspired by your childhood memories of, growing up in South Africa. So talk to us a little bit about where that inspiration was drawn from, and I guess what the process was like translating all of that into this film.
Yeah. So coming to America, my whole life I wanted to be a filmmaker, and my dream was to go to NYU. That was my top goal. If I could make that happen, I was would be the happiest person on earth. And then it did happen, and I was the happiest person on earth. And when I got there, it was so interesting to me because I knew so much about American culture, and I understood because of movies and TV shows, cultural references, and I didn't feel I don't know what I'm going into. But a lot of people didn't know about me or where I came from and my culture, and so a lot of the time I found myself really explaining South Africa, where I came from, trying to get people to understand. And so I started writing scripts as a way to get my classmates to understand where I was from by telling these stories from South Africa or true stories about other places in the world, because it started to interest me. And then I had this memory from when I was very young, which I won't say because it might ruin the plot of the film.
Spoiler.
But yeah, spoiler. But growing up, I had a domestic helper in my house, a nanny, and there was a picture of her in my dorm room. And people would ask me, "Who is that?" And I didn't really know how to explain who she was or what she meant to me, because I didn't really see a lot of those relationships in New York, where I was at that time. So I would explain her as my second mother. And because of those conversations, I started to really look deeper at the relationship. And I wanted to write the story as a means of honoring her and validating the sacrifices that she made to her children, and then to be with us and give us all the love that she has throughout these years. And so I wrote that script, and I spoke to her about it if she was willing and to give me the permission to make it. And she was, and I did that in my second year of university. And then 3 years later, I pitched it as my thesis film.
That's such a lovely inspiration. I love how it was, translated from your childhood. Well, since this was mainly from the direct experiences of Talia, I was wondering for Sabelo and Malibongwe, how does this story relate to you guys? Because even though it's not, your childhood stories, I'm assuming there must be certain parts of this film that also spoke to you on a personal level.
Malibongwe, should I go first?
Go for it.
Cool. So when Talia approached me for the what you call this for the project, I assumed they were going to play the lead. So I invested so much in the material because I mean it's something that, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I felt like this is something that every Black South African child can relate to. You know what I mean? My mother being a domestic worker, and not seeing her, throughout the year, seeing her twice a year for the June holidays and Christmas and otherwise she's away. So it was something that I could really relate to, and I could understand the character's internal trauma, and that whole identity politics, of not being Black enough amongst his own people because he goes to a white school, but at the same time he's really just fighting to be seen, and so that's what drew me to the project. Then when I actually tried, I was like, Sabelo, you playing Katalo? I was like, damn, shit, so, and that was even more of a challenge for me because, I mean, having been bullied myself in high school, for, being raised in a white household, and what you call this, eating cheese and what you call this cheese, toasted cheese. So I was always called a cheese boy and I'd get bullied for that. So now I'm playing Katalo, the person that used to kick my ass in high school. So it took a lot of research, and just trying to understand the psyche of this human being, because I do not think that people in general just wake up, to mess with people just in jail for the sake of it. There's always a deeper meaning. It always stems from somewhere. So I had to find that. Now, what happened is that I played from a perspective of longing for what he had. Malibongwe's character. He's got a mother that cares for him. He's got a mother that gives him oranges or whatever. That actually he's in a good school. And for me it was that I was longing for something. So it was projecting my insecurities, and that's how I could play it. Just to find the humanity behind the character and not just play a bully, you know what I mean? Because then it's just empty and it's boring to watch. But if there's that human element, we kind of see the guy's internal conflict, then we can watch and relate. Yeah, that's what drew me to it, man. Is actually, wanting to right the wrongs and understand why I was bullied, and like, oh, okay, cool, I get it now. And yeah, so it was exciting times. Yeah.
For sure. I love how you
100%.
talked about the reasoning behind why someone bullies people. That's usually not
Yeah.
something that is explored in films. But yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of Malibongwe's character, why don't you tell us a little more about what that was like and how you related to that on a personal level as well?
Oh man, I mean, just to really extend on what Sabelo said, I think every South African young Black man really has a way of finding themselves in a story of this nature. And I think for me, it was also that, the void of a parent and just not knowing reasons around it. But I think for me personally, what I sort of got was this sort of understanding of like why they were not there, and I think with every sort of narrative that comes my way, I always pray and hope that it not only heals me personally but someone else as well, because I think that's what the arts is made for, to somehow mirror society in some way and hopefully have people heal through it. So through that story, I got a bit of closure. And maybe have I fully debriefed on the character? I don't know yet. So that's still to be explored.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, this again, the stories, the characters, they're so well thought out. Everything is just, you feel the heart in the film. And so, I mean, it just bravo to everyone. You guys really pushed this through and it turned out to be such a success. You mentioned actually, Talia, that this was kind of worked as a thesis film with NYU. And so how did that whole production process happen, and even casting, like finding the people to play those characters, and then budgeting and all that kind of stuff? What was that process like?
Yeah, so in your final year at NYU, you pick your classes, and I picked a class which is a year-long course. And what happens is everyone in the class pitches their project, the story, the production, the budget, all of these things. And I had, from my freshman year, I worked with, I was in a class with my producer, Nora Zubizarreta. And I just remember her being so like, like, if we can't do it this way, we'll do it that way, and like really positive. And so besides for having her in that one class, we hadn't like done any work together, but I messaged her and asked if she would be willing to help me with it. And she was like, South Africa, absolutely, I would love to do this. And she was so essential to making this film. And so she came on board and helped me to pitch it to my class. She figured out the budget for it. And I really didn't think we would get selected because it was the highest budget and like the most like seemingly impossible to make, that we were going to South Africa. I believe NYU hadn't filmed a thesis in Africa at all. So wow. I was like, yeah,
first one. That's amazing.
Do it. I'm pretty sure, but I must double check that. But definitely not South Africa, that's for sure. And so when I got the call from my professor that we were selected, I was like relieved and then anxiety immediately, because now we have to raise all the money. We have to find cast and crew. And I knew that we would do it. I just didn't really know how. So that's when it all kind of started. And thank goodness my mom used to work in film, and my dad does post-production.
Oh, wow.
So I called my mom and I was like, all right, 24 years later, let's get back into it. I need you to be the feet on the ground for me. And so she would like help me to just get in touch with people and stuff in South Africa. And then I emailed all of the universities that were involved in film to try and cast. To cast and crew. And eventually somebody, like a friend from high school, put me in touch with my other producer. And she was in South Africa in a film school, and she was able to put me in touch. Her name's Kira Wolf. And she put me in touch with Sabelo and a whole bunch of other crew, which was super helpful. That's mainly how we got all of our crew. A few from another university, they very willingly put out a post for us on their like site. And then for the actors, it's actually like I always say this, I think, in every single interview or whenever I have the chance, but like the film gods were so on our side, and each person was like perfectly put there for the role. And it took a long time to get everyone, but everyone was perfect. For instance, our lead, Connie Chume, she's a legendary South African actress. And I was at a Halloween party, and this guy came up to me and was like, oh, you're from South Africa? Do you know this DP in South Africa? And I was like, I don't know every person in South Africa just because I'm from there. But I followed him, and he, the next day, posted a picture of Connie, and I saw the picture and thought, wow, like she would be perfect for the role. I went onto her Instagram, and that day she had downloaded it and accidentally put her number in her bio. So I messaged my mom and said, please call, because I can't call her. And my mom messaged her and said, can I call you to speak about something? And then Connie spoke with me, and she said she would do the film because she really wanted to help the youth of South Africa, and that she knew that there was going to be a lot of younger actors. And for her, when she was going through her career track, she really learned from other actors on set, and so that's why she wanted to be part of it. And so yeah, it all worked out. And Malibongwe we actually cast the week before, and I flew in from New York after my graduation. Me and my mom drove to the audition, and he did this performance, and I looked at my mom and her arms had like goosebumps. I think she was reading the role, but I could see the goosebumps on her arms. And we said to Malibongwe, are you free next week? Can you do it for us? So it all genuine, it worked out. And even though it was hard, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, that sounds like such a long process, but I'm so glad it happened. Just since, I'm just curious, since I'm interested in the whole production and the behind the scenes, how long did the whole filming process take? Because you guys went all the way to South Africa, and you had to get all the people there. How long was the filming and the editing and getting the final thing together? Like, how long did that process take?
Yeah, so we had there were 5 of us from NYU who came, and the rest of the crew was South African. But we needed to I don't know the word, unjet lag ourselves, like get rid of our jet lag. So we hadn't been to any of the locations. So I had to go with my cinematographer to each location once. The actors hadn't been to any of the locations before for rehearsal or anything. We just didn't even have that time, unfortunately. But so we had a week before production, and then we shot for 10 days with one break in between. And then it took us 6 months to edit, to do the whole editing process, because I went back to New York. Thank goodness my dad actually edited it. So he was editing it in South Africa. And then we also had to do music, color grading, small amount of special effects. And yeah, so it took us 6 months to get our final cut.
Wow. And also, you talk about the little details as well as post-production, pre-production, actually filming everything that no one really talks about. We kind of see the film and we're like, oh yeah, the film, it's there. But there's so much behind it. But
There's so much, yeah.
Being that there is everything behind it, talk to us about how it felt seeing how well received this film was being. And same goes for Sabelo Malibongwe. Please chime in about hearing Spike Lee, for example, presenting, because that's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I think for me, this is my first film, and so I was so nervous. You like, as an artist, I think, well, I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, I'm always nervous because you get very close to something, so you stop seeing it objectively. I remember I went through a period of those 6 months where I said, okay, I'm not looking at it anymore, so that I can take a step back and look at it objectively. And so we had our first premiere in New York, and I was so nervous. Like I don't even know, there was like cold sweat. And it was all my friends. It wasn't like anyone crazy that I was trying to impress. It was my professors, my classmates, all of these people. And then it ended and the lights came on, and no one was clapping, and I was like,
Oh,
I was so
God.
nervous, and I turned around because everyone was crying. They were all
Oh,
sitting
my God.
crying in their seats, and I think for me, I was like, okay, that feels really good, to know that we've been able to make people like have such a strong emotional response who aren't even South African.
Mhm.
And so when we went to South Africa and we had like a little small cast and crew premiere, it was really beautiful because you knew that it just hit home. And it was also like really rewarding to see all of our hard work paying off. So it's always been great. And I don't think I'll ever get used to the feeling of people like sitting and enjoying my work, just because it's a first time feeling. But yeah, and then obviously after that, it was like I was not expecting it. You hope and you pray, of course, because who isn't when they're like 8 years old? That's your biggest dreams. And then to hear Spike Lee, who you can't even register at the time that you're speaking to Spike
Right.
Lee, you're like trying to get over that. And then he tells you that you've got gold. I said, like, for the next 3 days, I was shaking. Like, I could not
I was
believe that
shaking
it
just
was
watching the
true.
video, so I can't even
Oh,
imagine for you.
no, it was like a true, I swear I could cry again. It's just like a true dream come true, not just for me, but everyone who was involved. It just validated everything for all of us. So
Mhm.
it was
Yeah, I don't even
wonderful.
think we've mentioned it so far, but the film got gold in the Student Academy Award. I feel like we just got to say that. Like, what was it
Among the
like?
many others.
I know so many other ones. The list, I was shocked when I saw the list, by just how well it was received by the rest of the world. How, like, Sabelo, how did it feel like to be a part of a film that has been this successful?
Yo, it was actually amazing. But when it happened, when Spike Lee announced that, it felt like a dream, because as I said earlier on, is that I mean we watched a lot of American content. We grew up on it, and Spike Lee, he directed He Got Game, More Better Blues, Malcolm X, and The Five Bloods. So when someone like that, has seen your project, watched it and decided, okay, cool, was one of the people who said, hey, that is the film. So it obviously, as we said, it validates, your dreams, that it's worth it. Everything that you've been going through is worth it. And just, the film itself and the message that it carries, it's so important. I feel like these are stories that should be told, and yeah, the only thing that I was sad about is that it was a short film. I wish it could be a feature, so, but yeah, man, it was really amazing. And after that, after I watched the whole, way I announced that we got gold, I was like, oh, so this is real. And it was like after 2 or 3 weeks. And then I was like, I was hoping that, he says, hey, man, who's that boy? Sabelo Ndumo in that film? Give that boy a job, But yeah, man, it's still unbelievable, man. It's still something that, you have to watch the video, you have to see it to believe it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm very proud to be a part of the project and, part of the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. And Malibongwe, you've also had many years of experience as an actor, voiceover artist. You've done a lot in the entertainment industry. So what was this experience like, adding it onto your list? And did you kind of discover anything about yourself as an artist doing this film?
For me, it's still, when someone mentions it, because wherever you go, someone will sort of mention it in some way or another. And I always try and go into my cocoon and just like, okay, yeah, thank you so much. And I want to just move on. I don't want to talk about it because it's like I'm still processing it after so many months. So yeah, man, it was really good. And I must say, for me, it just really validated the kind of sort of sweat and love that went into it. Um, all the accolades, all the awards, and all the love that we've been receiving from the film. are really mirroring the kind of work that we put into it. So, but for me personally, what I sort of got from myself was that, never really put hierarchy when it comes to storytelling or any projects, whether it's a student film or whether it's a telenovela or whatever you do, put in the same amount of work, because that is your face that's going to be there. That's your body. And so I was just so proud to just know and see my process, that it was not in any way different from the other projects. The same amount of hours that went into it was just the same. So yeah, for me, it really sort of validated that you went on your way, my moment. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you guys have talked a lot about how it felt so good for the work to be validated on an international scale. And I think a large part of that is due to like the different audiences that are now seeing something that is so uniquely cultural to South Africa. So I wanted to hear a little more about what it felt like for the work to be viewed differently. How was it viewed differently in South Africa compared to like more of the Western audiences, especially for Talia? You've studied in the entertainment hub of the world, and you've lived in both different places with such different people and such different cultures. So what was the way that people kind of received this work? How was that different between the different audiences?
Yeah, I think, there is a universal thread within the film of love and sacrifice, which I think allows other audiences to really connect with the film. But along the way, I think they're learning about another side of the world that they had never seen before, which was my initial intention, was really to just give everybody a new perspective. But in South Africa, I think a lot of people are seeing themselves, which is so different for us. I don't know. I remember watching Black Panther in America, and me and my sister went there in our South African rugby jerseys, because we felt like, oh, they're speaking Xhosa, and we don't know a lot of Xhosa, but we're from a place that has Xhosa. And when I was there watching it, and I was seeing legendary South African actors, and I wanted to turn to the audience and say, do you know who that is? Do you understand who these actors are? Or reading the subtitles, there would be some slang that me and my sister understood, and we'd look at the subtitle and go, oh, they did it wrong. And it just, that feeling for me of sitting and being so proud to see something that I knew that I had never seen before in that context. I wanted to give other people that feeling. And so in South Africa, I think people got to feel that, even though they weren't watching it with Americans around them, they were looking at the film, whoever they were. I think there is somebody that a South African can connect their story to. So I think in that way it's different.
And funny enough, just to add on to what Talia said, is that what I found interesting is that it kind of opened a lot of channels in how people view themselves. I mean, we take it for granted. I mean, we know that, our parents are domestic workers and they leave to go to work and blah, 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 that stuff. But I think that some people just didn't, understand the toll it takes, on the kids, and the sacrifices that the mothers make, and that journey, and what the kid is left with at home, you know what I mean? So one thing that I hope that people, take away from this is just to be a bit more understanding. But I understand, man, you can't tell a 10-year-old child, hey, be understanding, I'm working for your ass. That's, so that does, yeah. So I think, it just opened a lot of channels that we don't really discuss at home. It's things that, we never talk about. So even when watching the film, I think it was, oh, so that's what's happening. You know what I mean? And so that's something that I hope that people take away, is just that understanding that there is a whole lot of sacrifice in this work, as simple as it might be. But I mean, you're leaving kids to raise themselves. There's actually, child-headed households where kids are just left to fend for themselves because the mother, is out in Joburg, or the child is left in KZN, and you just have to, raise yourself. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just hope a whole lot more people see the film, and yeah, that is for me.
No,
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to also just add on what Sabelo just said. Really, I think also as South Africans, when it comes to our narratives, we barely really do we have them sort of shown in the most truthful manner, right? There's always some kind of filters in it. That in some way does make it, a bit shaky. Like, is this my narrative or is it not? And in what way is it sort of coming across? But like with this film, in some way, personally for me, I really felt like there was no sort of beautifying of it. It was literally there, take it as it is, and with hopes of really healing from what you have gone through. Because I do think and I do believe that it will hit differently to different people and in different parts of the world. I think people are. I think Sabelo and all the other actors. I think we must really brace ourselves to really answer to a lot of questions and choices really in our deliveries, because yeah, I think it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something that is just so important because, I mean, our audience is mainly located in North America, and it's no secret that our media rarely does a good job at authentically portraying any sort of like other cultures. There's always something a little bit different about it. South Africa culture is obviously no exception to that, which is one of the reasons why I appreciated Umama so much, because it's just something that has been missing in our industry. So, I mean, this is a bit of an open-ended question, but I was wondering if you guys have anything specific that you would love to see be more prevalent within media, just internationally speaking. Like, what do you think has been missing that just should be filled in?
I can go. I think for me, I would love, like, whenever I see South Africans portrayed on TV, like from America, the accent is so hard that I'm always like, why didn't you just cast a South African? There are such talented South Africans here. And I understand, like, there's exactly,
You got one right
look
there.
at,
Two,
just
yeah.
look at the cast of Umama. And I understand, obviously, there's like business, whatever that has to happen behind the scenes. So I do understand that. But I think in moving forward, I just want, I just hope that there's like a spread of reaching talent and like getting talent from other parts of the world, and just like more stories from other places, like even rom-coms. Like, I want to see a rom-com from somewhere that's, a story that I would have never seen, or yeah, just more stories from other parts of the world, I think.
Yeah,
I think
funny
for
enough.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, Malibongwe. Like, funny enough, man, I kind of like, share the same sentiment as Talia. I'd like to see more honest portrayal, of the people that we see on screen. I mean, I've had the same problem for a very long time with the whole Pan-African or generalized accent of Africans. I come to America for a green card. It's like, no, man, which African, South African person speaks like that, and yeah, and I think that it's just, and I remember I was watching an interview with Denzel Washington where he said that, I don't know what film you're talking about, and he was like, it's not a black and white thing, it's a cultural thing. A black person understands, he knows how to what you call this film, the process of combing hair. He knows what the smell, of that hair smells like. That's something that you can't duplicate. You know what I mean? And I feel like, maybe there should be more of that, the honesty, and just allow people to tell their own stories. you know, as Tyler said, if it's rom-coms or drama, you know, or sci-fi, because the thing is that we can easily tell each other stories, but you know, is it going to be the closest to the true thing, or is it just my perspective, what I think you guys sound like or look like, you know? And then, you know, that's what the problem is. So, yeah, man, yeah, that is for me.
Same here. I think it has to be the whole accent thing. I think it really, really gets to me, but I don't know. I think as time goes on, you get to a point where you're like, you know what, it's okay. I can only do as much, and I'm only in my home. I can only do as much. So I think it all really boils down to true representation of black bodies. Really.
Yeah, no, and I mean, actually, you're actually the perfect person to be ending off on this, Malibongwe, because you have Indibano the Encounter, which is actually an organization that does strive to do this. So, and you know, when we were looking into that organization, it's very similar to actually what we strive to do. So we were incredibly excited just to begin with. But yeah, so Indibano the Encounter, please tell us even more about it. But it is about, you know, the organization bridges the gap, I guess, between industry professionals and, you know, creatives, youth creatives in South Africa. So how did that even, you know, come up? Why was that so important for you to see that kind of representation in an organization in that way?
Look, I think for me, what was so important about that organization, thank you so much for raising it, actually, because it's something that I hold dearly to my heart and has really fueled every kind of work that I do. Because with that, I know the feeling of sort of starting out into the industry and really, you know, knocking on doors and no one is opening, and no one is really trying to give you a chance because who are you? Who knows you? So that platform really came about where I was like, okay, you know what? I don't want anyone to open what I went through. So here's a platform. And so time and again, you know, I'm trying to sort of bridge that gap. It's going to take a very long time to sort of allow these new faces into the industry. But I think the more they sort of get this idea of really what it is that they're getting into, the better, you know. So that's what we try to do every time. But it has been hard, obviously, because of COVID. But we try.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, like, could you talk a little more about what are certain initiatives that you've done, or like, how have you been actively trying to reach that goal? Because we don't, you know, our audience might not know a lot about this project in itself. So like, what have you guys been doing with it?
So really what we do is we try and have these seminars, right? So these talks with industry professionals. And what I try and do is sort of diversify them. So maybe try and have a cinematographer to a writer to a director to a producer, have them all on the stage and have them present sort of their journey and have these young people ask these questions. And what I found in that, in just sort of bouncing back and trying to get like the response from audience members who have attended these seminars is that for once in their lifetime, they get to really see themselves, you know, through these people, because these people are actually very hard to sort of connect with. You know, a producer of one of the biggest production companies is really hard to even email. Does the email even go through? Who even reads it? But actually just having them sit there, you actually realize, oh, this is someone who's just like me, who just had a goal, and here I am, and I can ask questions to them. So we've been trying to do that, and also obviously trying to now head to the younger generation, because I think there's a lot of neglecting that happens with them. And I think if we start grooming the young ones, primarily around the ages of 10 upwards, up until like 16, try and groom that age group so that they really, really know what they're getting into. I think we'd really have a very solid industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, Sabelo, you also are very active in the South African art scene, and in doing that, yeah, you not only in this film, of course, you're an actor, but you're also a screenwriter, and you do teach, and you've graduated from the FDA, which is a very renowned film art school in South Africa. So, you know, you do venture into these different fields. How do they kind of relate or kind of intersect for you? And, you know, being someone who actually teaches now, where did that kind of come from? Why was that important for you?
So it wasn't a choice. It wasn't my choice to get into teaching. You know, as Malibongwe said, what you call the industry is so tough. You know that there's a possibility that you could go for 2 or 3 years without, you know, booking a job, without seeing an audition. And so I just graduated from AFTA, the film school, and they were looking for someone to teach first-year students screen acting. And I was like, you know, I'm a screen actor, and it's something that I can do, teaching them basics. And that's what I did, and I just fell in love with it. So I taught, I think, for 5-6 years. And it's something that I just, you know, the more I teach, the more I learn about the craft and the industry. And so that for me became like a passion, you know, just, you know, figuring out things together with the students, you know, and just finding out new techniques. Because the sad thing is that sometimes you can easily get so fooled to thinking that there's a blanket solution for everybody, you know. So if you don't know the Stanislavski technique, then you ain't acting. If you don't know this and that, and I'm just like, no. So let's take it for someone who hasn't read Stanislavski, for someone who doesn't know. So how can we, you know, do the work, you know, and actually find the truth and the honesty behind the material? And so that interest of interrogating material translated into screenwriting. And there's a guy that I'm working with, is a brother from another mother, Morete Khabang. You know him, Talia? Yes, yeah.
What a guy.
So yeah, he's a screenwriter, and he's such an amazing writer. So everything that I know, I learned from him. So what I did is that I just took all the acting, you know, what you call this curiosity, and just being a teacher, reading people, reading students. Oh, so this is how you behave when you're struggling with something, and just trying to put it into writing, you know. And over the years, obviously, I just, you know, just learned how to become a better screenwriter. And yeah, and just, I mean, at this point, we're busy trying to go to Botswana to give some screen acting lessons there, because I mean, the TV industry in Botswana is apparently just, it's 5 years behind us, South Africa, and you know, they don't have, you know, what you call this acting agencies and classes. And it's something that, you know, I feel like, you know what, I could pass the knowledge that I know about the industry, about acting, you know, and about writing. And I'm very much a newbie myself. I consider myself a newbie in the industry, so therefore I'm like a sponge, just soaking up everything and looking for new ways to collaborate. So I'm just passing that onto the people that I'm teaching, the people that I'm interacting with, you know. And you never know, you know, there's some collaborations that just might come, you know, out of the students, like, oh, wow, okay, cool, let's work on this together. So, yeah, I look at myself as a team player. I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's so great that, you know, all of that came from a choice that wasn't necessarily something you wanted to do, but you've gained so much from it. But speaking of how, you know, the industry truly is very competitive, and there's so many people being a part of it, and only a few you see at the top and people you actually hear about. Well, I want to hear, Talia, you've graduated from the NYU Tisch program, which is already so competitive to get into. And now that you've graduated, I mean, this film obviously was a success. I wanted to hear about how you've approached, you know, life after school. Are there any other projects that you're working on? How have you, because I saw that you recently moved to LA, trying to, you know, find different projects that you can now work on. How has that experience been like?
Graduating is a whole nother world. Oh my gosh. Like, you've been a student for what, like 18 years of your life, and now you're not a student anymore. You kind of want to go back. I'm like, I'm not, I still need to learn. But no, I'm very grateful for having the experiences that I've had. And after graduation, I went to so because I was an international student, I have 1 year on my visa, which allows me to work in America. And so I went to LA to start networking potentially. I hadn't released Umama yet. Well, we still haven't released Umama, but it hadn't gone to any film festivals or anything. And it's hard, you know, everywhere, everyone is in the film industry. So on the one hand, it's amazing because you're like, wow, you're in the film industry, I'm in the film industry, let's do something. But yeah, it's definitely very competitive, but I think I was very grateful to have Umama because I could say to people, hi, I'm here, this is a film that I've done. At that time, it hadn't won any awards. So it really took a lot of convincing because you hear student film and then people are like, I don't want to watch that. And then I just started, I had an incredible roommate who was not in film at all. And she would just find every person in film. And she was like, you should come to our apartment. You should watch Talia's film. Come watch it right now. And she was great. But it's a difficult industry. And now, thank goodness, Umama did really well. It really helps you. You know, it opens a door that I'm so grateful for because I know I will be still knocking at that door. And so, yeah, so now I'm working on a feature film. I'm doing some other like fun projects. I'm back in South Africa, and I'm writing a film which is also based in South Africa on a true story again, and hopefully I can finish the script soon so I can try approach production companies now. So yeah, that's kind of where I am. And was that part of that was the question, right?
It was. You got it. Don't worry.
Just I'm like that. I don't know what I was saying.
No, you got it. But I mean, it's so the three of you hearing your stories, not only as individual artists, but as collaborators and working in this tumultuous and insanely unpredictable industry and managing to come out with something so meaningful and so true to yourselves is really just inspiring to many, Jazza and myself included, because you know, this is what the podcast and this entire project is about, is empowering people to say that they can do this too. Their dreams are not invalid. You know, we don't have to always see the arts as just supplementary to everything else. So as a final thought, just for all three of you, we'd love to get some answers. We always ask our guests this. What is a piece of advice that you would give to a young artist out there, whether they be, you know, Canada, in South Africa, anywhere, that wants to go into this art form, whether it be filmmaking, acting, whatever it is, but just feels like they can't, or that they're not gonna do it? You know, what would you say to them?
It's a deep question.
It is deep. We're ending deep. We made you think at the last one.
Christian, I can go first. I think, like I always say to young people, that I think what is so important is really truly to know why. Why you do it, you know, because there really isn't a manual to it, or that's something that you can sort of use to step by step. Okay, do this. It will work for sure if you do this. There's no such thing. But then I think if you do know your why, that why what will help you sort of maneuver yourself into the industry. I think for me personally, I knew why I wanted to do it, and I was crystal clear about it, and I knew how I was going to go about it. It wasn't easy, of course, and you know, doubt can creep in at times. You know, pressure is a thing, and it's a huge industry. And when you're a young one, you're also like, I just want to, you know, get in and go. It is tough, but I think if you really know your why will truly help you get there. And obviously, really determination and just continue knocking, because you never really know which door will open for you.
Who's our next chooser? Sabelo shaking his head. Talia,
I can go. I think one thing that always helped me was understanding that the reality of it, that it's not easy. Like, you haven't chosen something that's easy to do. So if you keep that in mind, you'll never be shocked at how hard it is. So, like from the start, I think you have to be somebody who, especially if you're from overseas, because when I go to America, I'm like, wow, I'm like, anyone can do anything, and you don't have to be that person who's standing and getting an Oscar. You can be such a successful production designer in commercials, and you could be doing absolutely everything that you've always wanted. And so I think it's important also to know that you don't have to be like a Quentin Tarantino or some big name to feel like you've succeeded, but also know that even to be that person where you don't really know that person's name, it's still hard. Like, you're gonna have to work hard, and that's okay. And I totally agree with Malibongwe, like, you got to know your why. And one more thing, I think I would say, something I always remind myself, is not to compare your path to anyone else. That you got to focus on what you're doing. Because if you're looking at your friend who's doing comedies and getting all of these films, and you're like, oh my God, wait, I haven't even started, and you're like, you can't, because you're doing something different. Or if you're looking at your friend who is an accountant and has already been promoted 3 times, and you're like, okay, but I haven't even, like, I'm still PA, I'm still setting up lights or whatever. You just got to focus on yourself. And if you do that, I think you'll get where you want to go.
Yo, guys. Yo.
You got it.
Yo, yeah, this is one of the hardest questions, man. Because, I mean, I tell them straight, don't do it. You're wasting your time. Go be an accountant. Go get a 9 to 5. And obviously then let's start the conversation. Like, okay, cool, listen, man, if it's something that you really want to do, you'll know it. You know what I mean? Because there's this one question that I'm battling with, is that when do you know that your time is up? How do you know that you'll never ever get there, or your best days are behind you? You know what I mean? So it's, sometimes people know when to give up, and some people, just stick it through, but then again, you'll never know. So that's why it's very hard for me to give advice. I'm just like, you're on your own journey. You'll know it. You know what I mean? If it's something that is for you, because I mean, in my class, we have like 50 of us in our final year. There's only 5 of us still in the industry doing it. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, a lot of people thought maybe it's for them, but it's hard, man. Being rejected every day, it's something that's painful. And as Talia said, is that sometimes you can very easily compare yourself to the person that's doing it. You know what I mean? But that's something that I had to learn later on in my life, is that acting has a lot to do with your face and just who you are in general. You know what I mean? You get in the role because you look a specific way and you react a certain way. You are a different being compared to the people, that have probably came out here. So you got to be yourself and be okay with yourself, and so that's why, like, I try and avoid giving advice. I really do, because I could tell you, stick it through, you there, you got it, and then the kid is miserable for the next 10 years. Like, Sabelo, you told me to go do this, now I'm here, but I'm not eating. I can't pay my rent, I can't buy food. In South Africa, it's tough, man. It's really, really tough. There's people during the COVID who stopped the acting, who stopped the entertainment industry because, shit, people were not seeing no paychecks. People were being evicted. People had to sell their cars. People had to move back to home, rural areas, so it's very hard to give advice. So I just say you will know it. Yeah, it's in here. You'll feel it and you'll know.
All right.
So that's
it's
all I
you
have to say, man.
No, it's completely true, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
very hard, and I can't even imagine
yeah,
also, in Toronto and things like that, we have more entertainment hubs, not as much as the US, in that respect, we still do, but in other countries, you have to find your own hub. And so,
yeah.
you don't know if it's gonna work out or how it's gonna go. And so, no, I think that's a totally valid and important advice.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, thank you, I guess, as closing to you, all three of you, Talia, Sabelo, and
Yeah.
Malibongwe, for being here.
Yeah.
Again, we will never be able to say how honored we were to be able to speak with you and to hear you guys and everything that you've been through and what you've kind of come out with. And we're so excited to see what you do in the future. And we know it's just going to be amazing.
We're going to have all their social media links in whatever description platform you're watching from. But for the three of you guys, is there anything specific you want to plug? Any projects that you're working on? Or I don't know, whatever you would like.
Oh, man.
Anything?
I never thought I'd do this so early in my life. This is when you're supposed to be working and you got work lined up. You know what I mean? Say, guys, stay tuned. I'm working on this project, blah, 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 blah. Well, you can follow me on Instagram.
Just stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I like that.
Mysterious.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's perfectly fine. We're going to, again, link all their socials. So be sure to check them out because they're very cool people.
Yes.
Cool projects. So.
And when Umama does release, please make sure to watch it and see what everyone is talking about because it is absolutely incredible. And we cannot wait to hear some feedback as well from you guys. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.